Welcome everybody to our annual Speak Out event for spring 2018. First time for you, annual for me. We've done this a few times. So very happy to see you all here. I'm scanning the room for visitors. I see one visitor. Thank you very much. Thank you. We have Dean Cindy Anderson sitting in with us today. So that's a good thing. Thank you. Right. And please don't be upset that there's not hundreds of people here. This is a very difficult time of the year. Lots of things happening on campus that are competing for people's time. But as you all know, there is an audience that lives beyond this room because thank you to Amanda and her wonderful media skills. It's being recorded and will be made available through the library's YouTube channel, which gets a decent amount of traffic, and will be archived in a library, so may be searched by future researchers like yourselves. So, okay, well, for the sake of the recording, my name is Mike McGuire, and I teach composition on this campus. We're here with my Composition 2 students who have been doing a lot of work this semester. Now, Composition 2 is a research writing course, as you all know, and research writing seems like a rather dry enterprise, I understand, right? You imagine many hours spent in the bowels of the library, basked in the electronic glow of the computer screen, spiraling endlessly down the rabbit hole of some academic database. Well, many of the students here engage in those kinds of things. Come on in, Paul. It's okay. And but most did far more than that. Together this semester, we engaged in more than just an academic exercise, more than just academic thought, but we tried to make this a semester of action. And to do that, we used a technique called critical service learning. Critical service learning is a pedagogical method that brings together both enhanced academics along with civic skills and also what's that other thing? And with meaningful service with our community, right? So enhanced academics, civic skills, and meaningful service with the community in an attempt to understand issues that are affecting us all much better, but also hopefully to affect positive change. And that's the idea. So rather than limit ourselves to the classroom this semester, students partnered with a number of community organizations, agencies that are working very closely with issues that are affecting us all. So in a sense, they got a chance to work alongside with experts in fields ranging from food insecurity to early childhood education to elder care, animal welfare, immigrant rights, homelessness and housing, cancer support, ecological restoration, local and extreme global poverty, etc. So quite a number of issues are represented here. Students combined this fieldwork research with personal writing of their own, as well as other intensive research efforts in an attempt to raise their own critical awareness and consciousness about these issues so that today they can call you to action. Okay, so without further ado then, please listen carefully to these students today, to these speakers, with an open mind and an open heart as they weave together their stories of self, a story of us, and most significantly, the story of now.
Hello, I'm Lucas Wonka. So I ran cross country for many years of my life, right? And it was very taxing. So you were up early, running in 90-degree heat, frigid weather, and sometimes forgetting to eat. So you would just like feel your stomach eating away at itself as you ran. I'm sure many of you've had this before. But for me, and many like you, like me, we all gotta go home, open our fridge up, and just take out that food and just eat it, right? But that's not the case for many people. They have to walk for miles and miles just to get the basic needs in life: food, water, shelter. And so the World Bank says that in order to be considered living in poverty, you're living on less than $1.90 a day. And the average meal costs $5 to $7, roughly around there. So the $1.90 a day isn't enough. And many of us have, like, we spend money on things that we don't really need. Like, for example, I know people who will buy the latest iPhone for $500 when 2 months ago, at the time, the $500 iPhone that was the newest thing was spent on the same thing. So it was just a waste of money that could have been going to a much greater cause. So today, I'm asking you to, instead of spending your money on something that you may not need, but to donate that money to organizations like Oxfam or UNICEF, where they will get the money to the people who greatly need it and help them get food, shelter, water, medical attention. But I know some of you might think you need that technology or whatever for your jobs and stuff. So if you can't donate the money, I think you should donate, or I'm asking you to donate your lightly used goods to organizations like Goodwill or Clothes for Souls, which will also get the things that people need in order to make life what we have today, where we take and get them the things that we somewhat take for granted each and every day. Thank you.
Good job, Lucas. Okay, my name is Elsa Carmona. Okay, so what do you think about when you see trash on the ground? What do you think about when you see trash on the ground near a trash can? Well, I personally get a little sad and mad at how conveniently lazy people are. How hard is it to hold your trash just a little bit just to reach a trash can? Well, this is a hobby I have picked up ever since I was little, so easily because outside was pretty much my babysitter growing up. At what age can you leave kids at home alone? I actually don't know. I don't know what the law is on that. But for me, when my older sister at 16 got a job, my older brother at 11, me 10, my little sister at 9, we were left at home alone. And my mom and dad both worked dead-end jobs at some factory. And yes, we were left alone. No, we didn't die, so I guess it was okay. We had a park about 3 to 4 miles away from us, which was roughly a little bit over an hour to get there walking. My mom would expect us to pick up a bag of trash, either on the way there or on the way back. I don't know why she did this. I think it was some kind of way of us earning to go to the park, just because we were little, and I mean, we technically weren't even supposed to like leave the house, but she would let us just because we wanted to go to the park. And it was our way of earning our privilege. I guess to build character, I don't know. Who was I to question an adult? My mom is always good at pointing out trash and having us pick it up. This isn't her native country, but she is allowed to be here, so she calls it her own. I was born here, so I am supposed to help clean it up. According to her, she always embedded this into our brain. So, I mean, I know that it's my responsibility. Do you pay taxes? I pay taxes. Trash is costing us taxpayers money. It is costing us a lot of money, actually. And did you know that according to the Illinois Department of Transportation, cleaning up litter has cost the state $9.1 million. And then according to a study conducted by the American Chemical Society's Industrial Engineering Chemistry Research Journal, litter cleanup cost our nation $11.5 billion a year. That is a lot of money that could be going elsewhere. Instead of that money going towards picking up trash, let's have it go elsewhere of more important things like Lucas's thing, which is, poverty. Totally agree on that. So when you go to the grocery store, when you go to school, when you go to work, when you go for a run, when you go on a walk on your dog, pick up a little bit of trash on the way there. It's not that hard. It can't be that hard if the 10-year-old me was doing it. And I wasn't just picking up a little bit of trash. I had to pick up bags full of trash. And together we can spend less on cleaning up trash. And by picking up a little bit of trash, there is trash everywhere. It is not hard at all to find trash anywhere. Thank you.
Hello. Thank you all for coming. Okay, so, well, first of all, my name is Diego Fernandez, and I want to talk about something that may not seem like a big deal to us, but it really is, and it's about the elderly. So I didn't really grow up with my grandparents, and neither did my mom, because her parents died at the age of 2. So she had her sister, which was only 15 at the age, no, it was only 15 at the time. She had to take care of 10 brothers and sisters. And it was in a time where times were rough in Mexico. And a lot of people thought they could take advantage of them because they were young and because they didn't have their parents anymore. So my aunt had to start working and had to feed 10 mouths. I mean, just imagine, I'm pretty sure none of us are 15, right? But just go back to when you were 15, you're probably playing video games. I know I was playing video games all the time, you know? And then having to take care of 10 kids is I can't even imagine. So years later, I was raised with my aunt. She would do cakes. So I would go on deliveries with her to parties, and we would take cakes to the parties, and I would eat so much food. I would be partying with the kids. I'd be in the bouncy house all the time. It was fun. It was a really good time when I was younger. And then years later, as we got older, she got older as well, and she started having problems. She started having problems with breathing, walking, and she would start forgetting things. She would forget how to cook, because one of the things she used to know how to cook, which was really good, and then I found out it wasn't anymore, and it was because she forgot how to make it. So then I started realizing that, you know, things are serious when people get older, you know, instead of, I feel like, my mom always told me this, you know, when you're young, you start going up and up like a roller coaster, and then when you get older, you just start going down, and then it just starts getting tough. So I took the liberty of going to a retirement home on a Saturday morning, and I was helping the residents there. And I was helping them go to church, and I remember I was on my way to pick up one of the residents, and she was looking outside of the window, and she was just calmly there sitting down. So I asked her if she wanted to come to church, and she said yes. You know, she was really happy about it. So then I started pushing her, and then she said faster. You know, she wanted to have fun. So then I started pushing her really fast, like I was in Fast and Furious. You know, I felt like Vin Diesel for a minute. And then after that, she was telling the residents that I was her boyfriend, so that was pretty funny. And then after that, I took her to church. So I went to go get another resident, and she was in the station where they watch TV. But she wasn't watching TV, she was just staring at the floor. So I asked her, would you like me to take you to church? And she gave me a bit of attitude, and she said, no, leave me alone. I was like, okay, you know, I'm sorry. And then with the lady that was helping me, went to go ask her, and she said the same thing, that no, because she was watching TV, but in reality, she was just looking at the floor. And I think a reason for that is because they have social isolation, and it's because they might have been abandoned when, you know, they were gotten to the retirement homes, and that's a big issue. There's a lot of issues with the elderly, and they have a lot of abuse, and it's not just physical abuse, but it's also emotional and mental abuse. And according to the National Council on Aging, 1 in 10 elderlies, which is 5 million, experience abuse, and only 1 in 14 are reported. And it's not because they don't want to report it, it's because they can't. You know, maybe they can't talk, or maybe they can't express themselves, or it's also because they don't believe them. They don't want to, because they're elderly, you know, they might think, oh, they're just lying or something. So I think that a big way to help this is going to a retirement home. And if you can't go to a retirement home, let's say you can't, I'm pretty sure you have somebody like your grandparents or somebody that's an elderly person. Talk to them. 5 minutes isn't going to hurt. You know, for those 5 minutes of you talking to them can make their whole week and make them feel like they are important to society, and they still matter, because sooner or later we will all be there, you know? And I think that by the time we get to that age, if we do something about it now, the younger generations will appreciate us more, and they will know that we are still important to society. And that is it. Thank you so much.
Hello, my name is Kyle Grezlinski. Now, when I was younger, I was always going to daycare after school, be it through like kindergarten to about 4th, 5th grade. Both my parents worked, so I had really no other option. But when I was there for about the 10 years that I was there, I learned a lot. And what I would do a lot was read to the younger children. This was as I got older, of course. Now this really touched me because I want to become a teacher. I want to educate those who may not fully be educated. And so when I was reading books to these kids and then they were learning and they were really paying attention, that really struck me. Now, when I was younger, this was during a difficult time. So there weren't as many kids there as possible. So I really wasn't able to fully reach out to all those that I really wanted to. Now, at the time, at the age, I really didn't understand the effect that I really could have on others that I could have now or even within the future. So when reading to the children, I really felt my calling. I felt that I had a certain calling. And then, like I said, that calling was to become a teacher, to help others. Now, when I was reading to kids, it was really where their imagination would just run wild, and then they would just have fun, and then just basically not do whatever they want, but they would just be in their own little world. Actually, one of the books I read to them was a Count 102 book. Just gotta put that in there because, at the age of 10, you can definitely read Count 102 books. But it was in the latter years of me in my schooling and also at my daycare. My mom lost her job. Now, this really hit me because it showed me that the world really isn't what you want it to be. Now, it wasn't only my mom that lost her job, it was also a lot of other people that lost their job during the time. And during a time of hardship like this, people have to turn to their community for help. Now, I know that you guys can relate to this because if you guys need help, you guys just ask for help. Now, whether this be in school, with your family, or within other like subjects, like your teacher, your counselor, etc. Now, asking for help is very difficult. But even though you ask for help, that doesn't make you a bad person. That actually makes you better because you're admitting defeat but trying to make yourself better. Now, I reached out to many different places to see where I could go throughout my life. Now, in one of the places that I actually reached out to was my local church, and they taught me a lot throughout the years. And one thing that really struck me in particular was it was one of the commandments, the 10th commandment, and it actually reads, "You shall not covet your neighbor's house, you shall not covet your neighbor's wife, or anything that belongs to your neighbor." Now, there's no commandment that specifically says, you shall take care of your neighbor's house, you shall take care of your neighbor's wife, you shall take care of everything that belongs to your neighbor. Now, it is not stated in everyday life, and yet we fail to take care of each other because 1 in 3 children in Chicago under the age of 18 live in poverty. That's nearly 200,000 children and growing steadily. That's 200,000 children that are going to bed hungry, that may not have a meal for a day or two or a few weeks. Now, this is why we can choose different organizations to try and help out Chicagoland child poverty. Now, there's not only 1 or 2 organizations, but there's organizations that cover a wide variety. Now, if you here all gathered today, we're struggling financially, wouldn't you ask for help? We must take action so that not a single child more suffers through the agonizing pain every night because they go to bed hungry or they cannot be kept warm in the cold night. Go to an organization that can assist you or assist your community to take a hand in the war against Chicago child land poverty. Now, Chicagoland child poverty is a monster and it shall be combated. Go volunteer and help in your community to make it a better place. A community is a pillar where we should all support each other. We can do this, but only together, as one, as a unified, heartful neighbors. Thank you.
Hello, everybody. My name is Adam Halesha, and today I'm going to be talking about global hunger. What does the power of food really mean to us? It may not be something that we take into consideration every day because maybe people like you and I have never had to worry about going to bed hungry, or maybe we've never had to worry about a shortage of food. I was lucky when I was younger that my dad and my mom were very loving and very caring. They always had enough money to care for me. And with that, I never had to have to worry about going to bed hungry. Unfortunately, it's a sad truth knowing that many people all over the world don't have the same resources that I might have. And it's sad to know that in recent years, numbers like these are increasing. Now, for the past 7 years of my life, my father has worked for Frito-Lay. Now, as many of you guys know, Frito-Lay is a chip company. They make things such as Cheetos, Doritos, popcorn, whatever it may be. Now, I may have taken advantage of this. I may have eaten a lot of chips. I still do. But still, every so often, I take a bag and I give it to someone. Not only because it makes them happy, but maybe I don't always know that they're going to be having enough food today. And that feeling of having that food might make someone's day. You may never know it. In a country where we spend $70 billion of food and throw it in the garbage every year, it's crazy to know that always countries ask us for help when we can't even help ourselves, because poverty is still an issue here. And in a country where we're always the ones that are trying to be helped, and we always want to be the ones to help others, how are we supposed to help the world when we can't even help ourselves? In global statistics, 1 of 9 people go to bed hungry every night. Now, it's something that you and I may not think of because we have enough resources to think about it, but we never take into consideration exactly what food really means to those. Now, when I ask someone, what do you feel about global poverty? People always focus on Africa because a lot of people in Africa have to worry about food. But unfortunately, in the topic of global hunger, that's only a seventh of the problem. There's so many more places that have to deal with things like this, and it's sad to know that numbers like these are increasing. So I ask upon you to try and help. I was happy enough to work with an organization called Feed My Starving Children, where people come together and make bags of food, including rice, corn, beans, to send to places such as Africa to help kids. 5 years ago, I went with my middle school, and to know that in an hour and a half, middle schoolers can make 75,000 meals for kids is crazy. But in the progress of those 5 years, to know how much a company like this has grown, and to know that numbers are still on the rise, it really makes me question what we've really done. Because knowing that these numbers have risen, have we really helped? So things simple like this, spending time helping out an organization, or maybe even a small donation could help and go a long way for people. So I really ask you, when your parents asked you to eat all your vegetables as a kid because someone overseas might need it, it really means a lot more now. So be smart with what you do with your food, because many people like you and me could need it to survive. And unfortunately, in a world where these numbers have risen, they need it more than ever. Thank you.
Okay, so I'm Jade, and just letting you know, my face is gonna get red, and I feel it, so I know it's red, so you don't have to let me know. So, I'm here to talk about animal welfare. So, I grew up as a little kid with animals all over my house, running everywhere, never went to school without fur on me. It was crazy. And I was always one of those kids that would go up to you and just pet your dog if you were walking, and I wouldn't leave you alone for like a good 5 to 10 minutes because I'd be talking about your dog the whole time. So I've always loved animals, and I probably have more pictures of my cat on my phone than anything else because she's my world. So I chose to do pause for my service learning project, which wasn't a hard choice for me. I previously volunteered there before, and like I said, I love animals. And my aunt is on the board there, so it was an easy in too. So I worked with cats when I was there. Like I said, I love my cats. But one of the things that I saw there was that there were 3 rooms, I lied, 4 rooms there, that are full of cats. There's cages stacked on top of cages, full of cats. And I'm sure it's the same with dogs too. There were some side rooms that it could be for a pregnant dog who just had babies or a pregnant cat. So it was very overpopulated there, which was fine. It was still fun. So overpopulation is a huge issue amongst all the shelters. I saw them turning away animals that came in because there were no room left, no cages, no nothing. So it was very disheartening. And it's also good to know that around the U.S., 6.5 million animals are brought into shelters annually, and 1.5 million are euthanized. This is a fact from ASPCA. And it's just sad because PAWS is a no-kill animal shelter. So all the animals that come in, they stay there. They're allowed to stay there for life. But other shelters aren't as nice as PAWS, and they end up euthanizing the animals that won't get adopted that often, have been there after a certain amount of time. So that's something that really needs to be fixed. So one of the things that I ask you guys to do is just spread awareness, because shelters like PAWS, before they adopt out any animals, they make sure that all of their animals are euthanized, or not euthanized, sorry, spayed and neutered before they get adopted out. So that way they cannot procreate and keep making more and more and more that are all in the streets all the time that just end up coming in. So you don't have to do much, just let people know and make sure that if you know any breeders or anything, make sure that they are spaying and neutering their animals before they get adopted out, because that will end the overpopulation all around the U.S. So that way 1.5 million animals a year don't have to lose their lives just because there's no more room left in shelters.
Hello, my name is Osama, and today I will be talking to you guys about an issue that means quite a lot to me, and that's the issue of the Syrian refugee crisis. I remember 6 years ago, back in the 6th grade in Saudi Arabia, I remember going on a field trip to a rural marketplace, and it was both educational and fun. Unfortunately, on that day, I forgot to bring money to the field trip, and as you might expect, it was pretty rough. It was at a time where Saudi Arabia was experiencing one of its frequent heat waves. You know, reaches about 100 degrees Celsius. Fahrenheit. Yeah, this is the United States. Yeah, Fahrenheit. So yeah, it was pretty rough because I couldn't buy food or water, and I never bothered to ask anyone. I think I had too much pride in me. But anyways, but the thing that kept me going was the fact that I had a home to go to in the end. I knew that whatever I felt was temporary. But it got me thinking about like how Syrian refugees have it, and they could easily chuckle at my experience because they've obviously been through a lot worse. I meet up with a family twice a week, and they told me about their experiences where they narrowly escaped death. They told me when they were in their neighborhood, when the first airstrike struck their neighborhood, they only had like a few seconds to evacuate, and they barely got anything. I mean, they barely had time to get anything. They even forgot to get their passports, and also like their experiences on the Syrian-Jordanian border was pretty rough. Even like when they got to Jordan, life wasn't a whole lot better because Jordan isn't really a wealthy country, and I mean they're doing a better job than others, I feel like, but it's still pretty rough, and there were even deportation officers looking for these Syrians, but eventually they came over to the United States. Just to give you an idea of just how bad things are in Syria, there are around 4.9 million refugees in countries such as Lebanon, Iraq, Turkey. They're scattered all over the place, and their economy fell in 2008 from 70% to only 20%, and things are getting pretty bad. But early on this semester, I teamed up with the Syrian Refugee Community Network, and I volunteered as a teacher. So I teach English to the family. And I feel like they're making progress. They're learning, getting the hang of it. But you don't necessarily have to teach English. You could really just help kids out with their homework. Be a positive role model for them. Keep them entertained. But we have to remember that Syrian refugees, they're people too, and we should thank God we're not in their position. But that doesn't mean we should just forget about them. Everyone deserves to have a to live a peaceful life and a happy one. Thank you.
Okay, so hi, I'm Yuritsa. So both of my parents were born in Mexico, and that makes me first generation here because I am the oldest. And it's not easy. I have a lot of responsibilities and a lot of pressure as well because I have to translate to my parents everywhere we go, like hospitals or restaurants, like ordering food, and pressure because I'm the first one here. I'm their first daughter here, and I want to make them proud so that they know their sacrifice of coming here was worth it. So my parents moved here 20 years ago, and yes, you might think that's a long time, but it's not that easy to learn a different language. They left their family, friends, and culture behind to give me a better life and my siblings, and to me, they are my role models and motivations because they came here with nothing, without knowing any English, and now they own their own business in a little village, and to me, that is proof that immigrants with or without knowing English can be successful. Now, imagine getting your hard work and dedication taken away. That is something that happens to many people who come here looking for a better future. And it's sad to see so many families get separated because of this. So about 10 years ago, ICE officers were in Little Village, which is where my parents work, and they started arresting people. I mean, they were only looking for bad people, which I think is good, but they scared many innocent people and they separated many families. And thinking about this day still makes me upset because of the families that were separated, and I wouldn't like to be in their position. So it's just unfair that these people who come here for a better life and they leave their country because of the violence there is there, they're treated like nothing. And they're most of the time insulted because they're not well informed with things going on or their English. And that's one of the obstacles when coming here, learning English. It can be hard to learn English, like I said. It's not like, it doesn't take a month. It could take years, and I know that from my parents. But I think it's never too late. It's possible to learn it because I learned this in the ESL Conversation Circle here at Moraine Valley. It's a course that anyone can attend. And it was a fun experience for me because I met people from different part of the world with the same dreams and goals, and it was fun because I'm used to translating and helping my parents, and it's something I plan to do in the future as my career. So it was a fun experience because I just thought that these people, even though they were like 60 years old, they still wanted to learn, and I think it's great to keep learning and keep getting educated. So learning more than one language, as you all know, can be very beneficial, and that's something I learned. So I had to improve both my Spanish and English. And I think that if these people could do it, we can do it too. And there's so many things we could do now to learn this. For example, there's online classes. YouTube tutorials. It might sound kind of silly, but little kids are using YouTube to watch videos on how to make slime, or they just watch videos of other kids play. So who said we can't use it to learn a new language? And there's also free classes here at Moraine Valley, which I think is great because everyone loves free things, right? And there's also the easiest thing I think we could do is just talk with someone we know, a friend, family who's struggling with English for 5 minutes a day. I think that could make a big difference. And it's not that hard. The way we could get involved is just be patient, spread the word, and helping each other out about the resources we have, because by helping each other, we're building a better and stronger community. Thank you.
Hello, everyone. My name is Jorge Rodriguez. I'm going to talk about global poverty, as other people have already talked about. My parents got divorced when I was living at a young age, and my mom decided to take herself and I to the United States from Mexico. And during the time, it was just me and her living day by day, and she struggled getting a job because, first of all, she didn't know English that well. And I remember some nights where she would have to get a babysitter for me, so she'd have to find a job to pay rent, pay the babysitter, and to provide food for both of us. And it was a really hard time for us. But luckily, eventually, she got a job, and she was able to provide for both of us so we can eat. And this got me thinking, like, there's so many other people that immigrate to other countries, and I'm not the only one that went through the same difficult times of like not having enough money and food and shelter. So this got me thinking that the other people in other countries also deal with this, and it's got me to think of what can we do in order to help these other people out. And from my service learning experience, I took action to work at an organization that they help fix donated bicycles, and then they give them to people in the local Chicago area and even to other countries and in the world, such as in Latin American countries and African countries. And my experience there, I was only able to fix one donated bicycle at the whole time I was there, but that one single bicycle that is given to that one person that helps them get from one place to another can mean so much to them. And thinking about it, that one bicycle that they're able to get can give them that one little hope they need in order to move on to try to get out of that poverty lifestyle. And so I ask for you guys to also take action and by helping decrease poverty as a whole by volunteering at another organization or donating money. And if you don't have enough money to donate, like I said, you can spend your time at an organization helping out, or you can even start out by donating any unused items, such as clothes or games or anything you have at home that you just don't use anymore, because it can really help out a person in need that has a harder time getting that same stuff that you have. So, yeah.
Hi, my name is Yasmin. When I was 6 years old, my family and I had moved to a new area. It was quite new, as there was no other houses except mine and the other one that was next door to mine. That summer, I hoped to meet someone my age, and my wish came true, as I met a girl that was a year younger than me, and we had a great connection. We built a wonderful friendship, but as we got older, we drifted apart. We eventually went to the same middle school, and we were on the same bus. Since I said before we drifted apart, I was hoping to rebuild that connection with her. But as soon as I got on the bus, I saw the other children did not treat her well, and I wanted to fit in, and so I treated her just as they did. And they bullied her with their words, and I followed. I knew she had financial difficulty, and so I used that against her. Her dad had been deported back to India, and her mom was working across the street at a gas station to support her and her two other siblings. And even though I knew that her financial difficulty shouldn't impact her because it had nothing to do with her, I used it against her. Eventually, her house had been taken away by the bank, and she moved away. Eventually, she came back, and by then, I was a freshman in high school, and she was in 8th grade. I knew what I said and what I had done was wrong, and I had to apologize for what I had said and what I did. And at that time, I remembered I started swearing, and so I swore at her and said racist jokes to her, like behind her back and things like that. I used her own financial status against her, and I knew that was wrong. After she graduated 8th grade, I was a sophomore, and then she was a freshman. I apologized, and I wasn't expecting her to forgive me. I wasn't expecting that out of her, and she did. I was actually very happy of that too, because she then told me how my words didn't affect her, but after she transferred, she was also bullied then, and her situation had not improved. Now I really want you to think about the kids who constantly struggle with the ideas of others imprinted into their brains. There are kids every day who go to school struggling with an internal battle of depression and anxiety. They're constantly worried about their families and where they're going to end up. They also worry about how the rest of their lives are going to look. Just to get a better view of what I'm talking about, the Heartland Alliance measured that approximately 1.6 million people live in poverty, and from that 1.6 million, 511,000 kids are affected. Imagine all those children who go through a daily struggle. They wake up every day. They wake up in the morning without breakfast, and they go to school worrying about
when am I going to eat next, or when am I going to shower, or where am I going to sleep that night? They worry about these things that they shouldn't worry about at such a young age. We have to worry about how they're going to end up in their future. So we cannot stand idly by. Poverty strikes throughout the world. Even though we're a single person, we can only do so much. We can make a big impact into their lives. The smallest of actions make the biggest of impacts, even if you don't see it right away. The least that can be done is to donate supplies and food to organizations, but also the other thing that can be, the other steps that can be taken as well is promote healthy peer relationships between these children, as well as to make sure that these schools are giving out free meals. I worked with an organization called My Joyful Heart. This is just an example. There's obviously other organizations out there. They help and they sponsor children throughout their lives. They sponsor them until they move away. So they sponsor children specifically in the Chicago public school area. So I thought it was really helpful. It was really awesome of them to, donate food and supplies to these children. Many solutions can be given, but it's not just about listening to the solutions. It's about applying them, and by applying them and trying to create a change. Whatever you view as small just because you're a single person can actually create the biggest of impacts. I hope you can remember that. Thank you.
Hi, my name is Ashley. So when I was in 5th grade, my sister had this friend Lance, and his dog Raven had 10 puppies. He got kicked out of his apartment. He wasn't allowed to have dogs, so we took them in for him while he was trying to find an apartment, but that apartment never showed up. So we took them in, and Raven was very aggressive towards us. She didn't know us. She had 10 puppies that she had to take care of. So we weren't allowed near her or her puppies, so that made it really hard to take care of them. So every day I would sit outside of her cage that we made for her, and I would sit there and talk to her and feed her little food pellets, and I would try to get her to know me and know my voice so that she would be more comfortable with me. Eventually this worked. I got a lot closer with her, and I was the only one who was able to be in her cage or touch the puppies or touch her at all. This left me basically all the responsibility except for the money part of it. I had to feed them, I had to clean up after them, I had to walk them, I had to do basically everything. I was their only form of human contact at the time, and that's really important at such a young age for the puppies because they're at a very impressionable age. So I was the only human contact that they had for them, so I had to make sure that I was doing my very best to take care of them so I wouldn't do anything wrong and that they wouldn't grow up, hating humans. Since I was the only one to take care of them, I became really innovative with the walking. I took my dad's belt without him knowing, and I poked 4 holes in it, and then I tied a leash to each belt, and then I had 3 leashes in one hand and 3 leashes in the other, and I was walking up and down the block with 10 puppies running around me, and it was super crazy because I didn't want to make 10 trips, so I just became super innovative. So when they finally grew up and it was time for them to become adopted out, I was kind of the only one who knew their full personalities, so I was kind of in charge of the adoption process. I was in 5th grade, so I was really afraid at that time that they would be going into a bad home because of the type of breed they were. They were a Pit Bull Bulldog mix, which is a bully breed. And a lot of the bully breeds are used for dog fighting, and I'm sure a lot of you have heard from that. That was just my experience, but we've all had interactions with animals, whether you've loved one, whether you've seen one on the street, whether a family or friend has had one, or whether you've seen the Sarah McLachlan commercial. For just 63 cents a day, you can save an animal in need. And it shows the dogs really sad, in their cages, kind of look pouty and everything. And I think that really we can all relate to that because it's kind of like when you do something wrong, your parents go to your room and think about what you've done. So you go and you sit in your bed and you pout and you're like, wow, well, maybe if I would have done this differently, or what if I did or didn't do this, I would be able to go to the movies with my friends or go outside and play or something like that. And it's kind of the same thing for animals in shelters. A human puts them in their kennel and they don't think they've done anything wrong, but I've never been in a dog's brain, but they probably think what if I wouldn't have done this or would have done this? Maybe my human would have loved me or fed me or played with me or had any type of loving contact towards me. For our service learning project, I volunteered at Paws of Tinley, And it really gave me more of an inside look of how these dogs are treated before they go to the shelter. We would have dogs come in that were completely emaciated, looked like a corpse, skin and bones. We've had dogs that come in with gunshot wounds because, their owner just didn't want them anymore, so they figured I'll just cut the problem at the source. And I was talking with a volunteer that's been there for a few years now, and she told me something that really resonated with me, and I really agreed with it, but I didn't know I agreed with it until she told me. And that was, there's such a love-hate relationship with volunteering there. I love that I get to, but I hate that I have to. I love that I get to work with these animals daily, but I hate that rescue shelters are even a thing. We shouldn't have hundreds of animals here that have been neglected, abused, unwanted, and stray. If we commit to taking care of an animal, there should be no ifs, ands, or buts. There should be no reason for any animal to be here because of what a human has or has not done with them. And that really kind of stuck with me because after she said that, I kind of thought about it like, yeah, like rescue shelters shouldn't be a thing. If we commit to something, we should commit to it. That's another life that's in our hands. So what I ask you guys to do is if you already own a pet, just continue to love it. Don't neglect it. Keep taking care of it. You committed to that, so keep with it. If you don't own a pet, if you see a stray on the street, you can call your local no-kill shelter to get them help. You could volunteer at your local no-kill shelter. I volunteered at Paws, like I said. It doesn't seem like much when you help an animal get a home, but if you sit back and think about it, after you do, you just change that animal's entire life. You just change their past for them no matter what. And it's really rewarding once you know that it was because of you that someone's life is changed, whether it's an animal or a human or what. If you don't like volunteering, you can always donate to your local shelter. They're always looking for, blankets and towels and food, and a lot of them are based on like a income that's based on like donations only. So a lot of them aren't run by the government, so they can't really get a lot of money unless it's donated to them. And a lot of the vet bills really run up, especially at Paws. So I know how much that really does mean to them when someone comes in and gives us, even if it's something small like $20 or a blanket or a towel. So thank you.
Hello. So my name is Krisha, and the actual topic we're talking about today is ecological restoration. And as a young age, I always remembered me going into forests and always getting a sense of relaxation while in the forest and always coming up to some new adventure. And what does it mean to you? Because there's 3 types of deforestation. There's livestock, agricultural, and there's industrial. Industrial's making room for factories while livestock is actually farming. And the agricultural is also farming, but for plantations and stuff. And despite me giving you 3 different types of deforestation, there is no right way to destruct forests because they're a part of our ecosystem, as we are too. But for some reason, we go away from the ecosystem as if we're not part of it. And through this process, we're actually harming animals as well. And trees do everything for us. They even help us to breathe as they absorb carbon dioxide and release oxygen. And we take that for granted as we believe that trees don't matter because we want to make room for more profit. And the problem with excess carbon dioxide within the air that the trees don't absorb is climate change. Climate change has become a huge problem within our nation. And many controversy comes to it because Donald Trump, unfortunately, does not believe in climate change for some odd reason. And that's terrible, with many animals suffering from deforestation because we believe that we're the only species on Earth that matters and that no animals can benefit from it. But animals rely on the forest for their habitat. So the main question is, what can we do to help? It's the little things that matter. Recycling, reducing, and reusing everything that we use, because from 1970, our population has actually doubled in size. And with that being said, the production of plastic is also 15 times more than what it was in 1970. And we just throw it in litter, like as if it doesn't even matter. We don't even think about the long run. And so now, when I go into the forest, I don't have a little kid perspective. I always see plastic bottles or anything, And every time I go on my little forest preserve walks, I always bring a bag and just collect it all, because it might not matter to locals, but in the long run, it all helps us at the end. And another huge thing that should be considered is environmental education, because this whole purpose is raising awareness. And raising awareness is everything. Even if you don't care about it, if you're aware of it, you'll always have that little spark. Oh, this is what I need to do. And places like Texas have actually put a requirement in school systems for educational purposes for the environment. And this helps a lot, because it also brews up many bright ideas to the young minds within our country. And these young minds could potentially even help the future by maybe they're interested in the environment and they want to do something to help, because the planet will always be here, we might not. And with all the deforestation causes many problems. And so the big scale is, if the world was on a 24-hour scale, that humans have been here for only 4 seconds. 4 seconds, that's actually crazy to think about, because we believe, since the dawn of time, we think that we're the only ones that matter. But 4 seconds, we've caused all this destruction, and maybe within that 5th second, maybe we would even be here to see the damage that causes deforestation. So I personally believe that everybody should think and be aware and spread the awareness to how we could help out our environment, because within time, we might be the last species to be extinct. Thank you.
I apologize in advance. I ran out of printer ink, so this is all All right. I'm Paul Torres, and basically, I've grown up around stray animals, mainly dogs, all my life. And usually these animals are very mean, at least mean looking, very upset, and no one wants to come near them. And I don't kind of blame them, you know? They look upset, you get near them, they bare teeth, and I don't want to get tetanus anytime soon. So, you know, you think, I'll just call a dog catcher, or I'll just call whatever shelter that I feel like, because I don't want to be near this creature. And, you know, that's understandable, but think about it. You're running around naked in the streets, and everyone refuses to even look at you if you're asking for help. And then some guy with a really long stick and a wire around your neck pulls you into the back of a van. I'd be pretty upset too, not gonna lie. So I decided to work with Paws as well, and I was pretty happy that I did get to work with them, because their whole deal is that they won't turn an animal away just because it looks mean, or because it's too old, or because it doesn't have a leg, which I've seen animals with 3 legs there. And that's because they care. They really do. They don't just take in animals that they feel would sell or would bring them more traffic to get them more popular. They do this because they care. And the best thing that I've seen there is just people walking in to take care of the bigger animals, or the bigger dogs specifically, in the back room and treat them like they're puppies. Because that's what I do with my dogs. I always, you know, say, you know, my dog's so nice, he's so nice, and he's a 70-pound, angry, grumpy old just meat bullet that will run at my legs and knock me down. And people are terrified of him. But, you know, I love that dog, and he's still 2 months old to me. And that's how these people look at the big dogs in the back that would scare most people into leaving. So I truly respect that about that organization. And I really want everyone to look at big dogs and any animal like that, even cats, which, but yeah, only joking, all animals matter. But I really want everyone to treat animals with that much respect and that much love that I truly do see there at Paws. And I just want all of you to understand that if you see a stray animal or, you know, see a cat or a dog just on the side of the road, don't call just anybody, because chances are they may kill that animal because it's too injured or it's too old or it's too angry looking. Just look into, you know, the number that you're calling, and it could save a life. Thank you.
Hello everyone, my name is Eva. When I was a child back in my country, Albania, I used to spend my summer nights counting the airplanes and from the balcony of my house. And so, with a wish of being on a plane one day to visit the American land, I fall into the sweetest dreams for my future. But then sometimes dreams can be true. Years later, I came in America as an international student to have a degree. Things weren't as in my dream at the beginning because the reality always disappoints people. I came here 2 years ago with my broken English and no sense of orientation about my life. As you all know, language can be really important in communication with other people. And I believe that's important for immigrants and also for the 300 international students at Moraine to get to know their rights and to fight for them. When I first came here, all I could say confidentially was, I am an international student. But stereotyping myself that way put me in a box labeled as the foreign or immigrant or someone that doesn't know how to live life or to dress up and sometimes even ignorant. Likewise me, all people who come in America to get a great opportunity have seen themselves that way, with an inner conflict or left behind because in the end of the day, you are just an immigrant. There is another issue that stays between Native Americans and immigrants. The issue is not only the language barriers, it's more in being adaptable in the diversity of this interaction. Adapting with immigrants can be easy by not judging them from their accent or the way how they speak, the way how they act. Immigrants immigrants don't break the crime and should not be judged by that. And this little prejudice, in most of the cases, have nothing to do with us. We are just like you. We like to have a happy life and to be worthy to the society. In this room, there might be other international students and that can be related to what I said. However, everyone in this room have at least one family member who came here as an immigrant and struggled maybe more or maybe less. To come to an end, English is not my first language, and you can notice that from my accent. But however, there are so many other international students here, or even immigrants. As I said, choose America to get a better opportunity. Even though they know that English is not their best asset to offer to the environment. In this situation, we, the foreign people, have too little to do on our own. But people that surround us can do so much to help. Starting by not being passive and offering your help with a warm conversation. Be on immigrants' shoes and lending them a hand and telling them, I feel you, brother, or I do understand you, sister, with the struggle that you have. That way, you help them improve their English. But most important, you help yourself, making your heart and your soul reach. Thank you so much.
Okay, I wrote it on my iPad. Sorry, guys. Okay. Wait, let me turn my brightness up. Okay, I'm Tyler. Did you guys know that out of 1 every 10 people in between the age of 18 and 25 end up homeless or has experienced homeless? When I was growing up, my life was a little tough. I wouldn't say too much, but my mom got pregnant at the age of 18. At that moment, she realized how tough life really was, especially being a teen mom. A couple months after my mom had me, she started working not 1 but 2 jobs, and sometimes even 3, just to support me and her. And after a couple months, after, starting to kind of getting a hold of her life, I guess her and my grandma got into it, and my grandma ended up kicking her out. So after that, my mom had to move in with my great-grandma and my cousins. So my mom packed me and her up, and we moved there for at least a month or 2. And after that month or 2 was over, it was time for, time to move on with our lives. So at the time, luckily for me, I have a really supportive godmom and a whole nother family. So with that being said, my mom decided to have me move in with my godmom, and little did I know my mom was actually homeless. So while I was thinking, my mom's at work or doing this and the third, my mom was really in the shelter. She was really in the shelter. Sorry. My mom was living in the shelter and working just to support me and her while I was living with my godmom. Sorry, guys. So for the service learning project, I decided to work with beds, which is a service. For my service learning, I decided to work with Beds, which is a homeless shelter, which is located in Oakland, which is in a church. They meet every Thursday, and for them, people check in, and they have the option of like setting their clothes down to get washed for the next day or forever how long it takes. And after they settle down, they can get lunch for tomorrow, and they basically unload everything they have. They make up their beds that they have for the night, and they can go get dinner. And most of the time, sorry guys. Okay, so after they make their beds, they have the options to go get food, and they have the options to go get like new toiletries and different things, just so they can like have more clothes and just to have stuff on their backs. And I was really surprised because when I went there, it was a family there, and it was like little kids too. Like they had to be in like, I don't know, elementary school or something. Like you wouldn't even know that they were homeless. They were running around having the times of their lives. And I know it was like, sorry guys. Okay, so it was kids there running around having the time of their lives. It was the adults there. They were like, I don't know, they were playing cards or whatever they could get their hands on. They were talking about their day or different things that happened in the economy. And it was other people watching TV. I know most of the women, they went to go lay down, read their books and stuff. But if you were to look at it, you was just to think that, it was just so normal. Like you wouldn't even think that, they're having a really tough time because they're homeless. Because once you got there and was able to experience and see what they were doing, you would just be like, okay, they're just like us. Or, there's nothing different. Only thing different about them is, sorry. They don't have a roof above their head, or they they don't have to worry about where their next meal is going to come from, or who is they're gonna have to fight off for that night to sleep somewhere on the street, or just simple things like that, like me and you don't have to do, because clearly everyone looks fine. And you guys, it's just so different. So if any of you guys, well, all of you guys really should just, if you have any old clothes or see homeless people on the street, not everyone that you see is, I know most people hear the term where, oh, they look like they're drunks, or they look like they're like on some type of like drugs or something. Most of them aren't. So if you want, you can either, I know what me and my mom do, we go to like random people, we either buy food and just give it out to random people. It's just an act of kindness, because you never know when that person's next meal is going to be. And you can just give old clothes, or you can give canned goods if you don't really trust. I know a lot of people come to my job and they come and they'll buy people food and then just be like, oh, here, just because, you know. So you guys take the time out of your days. You can just be kind and give out to people, because if the roles were switched, wouldn't you want someone helping you?
All right, good morning, everyone. My name is Curtis, and I'd just like to take a few minutes of your time to enlighten you on a very critical yet ongoing issue that's currently being seen all over the world today. But before I dive straight into that, I'd like to supply you with a little bit of backstory. So when my grandparents were still living, you know, I didn't really pay much attention to their lifestyle. You know, I was young, you know, full of games and fun. But the more I started going around them, the more I started noticing, even at that young age, that my grandparents were living a pretty boring life. And by boring, I mean, you know, waking up to watch the People's Court for a good 3 to 4 hours, and then eating a snack, and then continue watching the People's Court for the rest of the day. And, you know, it had me questioning, you know, how is it that my grandparents or any other elderly person, you know, could sit in front of a TV for hours and hours on end watching a bunch of court cases? And I know what you're probably thinking, you know, well, the same way you can sit in front of a TV and play Call of Duty or Fortnite all day. But I came up with this conclusion. There is so much depression in the elderly community, it's appalling. If you just take time to listen and, you know, listen to what they're saying, the message becomes crystal clear. Our elders need our attention. 10 minutes from this school, there is a Catholic charity center called the Holy Family Villa. And upon my visit there, you know, I was to interview a few elderly people and to interact with them, you know, to get them out their house and, you know, just have a little fun with them. However, I couldn't help but to notice the somber, depressing faces of the elderly people at the facility. And, you know, most of the elderly people have set routine, whereas, you know, it appears as though they're not looking forward to anything, you know, they're just waiting to die. And I bring this up because not only does it just affect me, but it affects all of us, believe it or not. You know, as students, teachers, moms, dads, brothers, sisters, whoever you may be, we cannot afford to turn a blind eye to this issue, because our elders, as harsh as this may sound, appear to be living the life of neglect. As a matter of fact, according to the Brisbane News article dated February 13, 2018, the elderly have been deprived from decent care. And the article goes on to explain how cheap aged care and rehabilitation facilities have been with feeding the residents, spending as little as $6 a day. Let me repeat that, $6 a day. Now, just to give you a better view of that horrible fact, that's 3/4 of the amount spent on prisoners. Now, some of you may be interested in helping relieve this problem, while others may not even bat an eye to this message. But for those of you who choose to take a stand against this injustice, I ask you to stand with me. I ask you to take an hour or two out of your schedules to volunteer at your local senior citizen homes. Liberate our elders from beyond those four walls. I ask you to go deeper than that. Let's not forget our families. And when I use the term elder, let's not limit that word to just grandparents, because those grandparents can be our moms, our dads, our aunts, our uncles, our guardians. Life is way too short to be watching hours of court cases. No offense, Judge Judy. So what do we do today? We looked at the issue through a little bit of my backstory. Next, we examined the implications of the issue, and finally, I gave you some options of what you can do to help our elders get out more, to experience more, and to have that confidence to do that. Now, I'll leave you with this saying coined by yours truly. A good community acts to alleviate the issues surrounding them, but a better community steps out beyond their own to alleviate the issues around the world. Thank you.
Hi, my name is Diana. As you all may know, I was born in Mexico City. I moved here from Mexico City when I was like 14 or 13 years old, maybe around there. Yeah, all I knew was the basics of English. I didn't know much. Well, my first language is Spanish. My parents didn't know any English at all. I probably knew more than them. We moved here. We lived in my grandmother's home for a couple of years, probably like 3 or 4 years with them in Blue Island. My parents, back in Mexico, they had their whole career, their diploma and everything, and it doesn't transfer here. So it was kind of going from a good financial status back in Mexico to working really low-paid jobs here. My dad was actually a dishwasher for a while. Obviously hated it because he has a diploma in accounting. But because of his language barrier, he couldn't work as an accountant. Saying this, my mom, she didn't even work in Mexico because my dad's paying job was very well paid. She didn't have to. She just took care of us. I have 2 other siblings. I am the youngest. My sister actually had to stay back in Mexico for a while, finishing her studies until she actually came back here with us. My brother was actually born in California, so he had a little bit of a advance, I guess you could say, in English and in studies. It was a little bit easier for him. Unlike me, I was still little, I guess, and didn't know much, but worked through it. Being here for a while really made me believe that learning something new every day could actually change the way you see things. My cousin taught me more English every day. I had to read children's books when I was 14. You know, it was hard, but at the same time, I'm actually really, really glad that I'm here today. Who would have known that I'd be here talking in front of people? And skating was actually one of my, I guess, it was one of the things that made us move here. My parents wanted a better life for me, a better education, a better overall life. So I started skating back in Mexico, but moved here because of it. I wanted to get better. I wanted to get more to a professional level. Unfortunately, I didn't get to it because of our financial status. I still love the sport. I lost interest because I wasn't getting as many lessons a day or as much ice time as I would have. I lost interest because I stopped learning new things. I still teach. I'm an ice skating coach right now. I love the sport, but I still do shows and stuff like cancer benefits and everything, but it's not as it used to be. I went to Moraine Valley's ESL conversations once, and my parents actually go to it every Sunday. It's like their social hour, I guess. I love going to it because I get to experience new cultures, new foods. They love making food and bringing it here, or just my mom, she got a couple of friends, I guess, at this conversation, and she got new recipes, and she's excited to try it. And I like the fact that my mom and my dad as well can go to these conversations and talk to these people, even though they have broken English, they can still communicate in a way, and it's interesting to me that they can still do that even though they can't communicate fully. So what I ask of you is to come to one of the ESL conversations on a Sunday. I know most of you don't do anything on Sundays. I know it's just like a lazy day. I know it sounds weird. Come to Moraine on Sunday and just stay there for a little bit. Even though you can just help them for like a good half hour, a good hour, I don't know, but it can make someone's day just by helping them practice their English, or just know that there's someone there that cares for them. Thank you.
Okay, my name is Micaiah Winston. I decided to participate in helping. I'm sorry, I didn't. I decided to participate in helping immigrants and refugees learn English for my service learning. I chose the ESL Citizenship Program, a class that helps them learn their second language. I personally had an interview with one of the students in the class, and I asked her a couple of questions about why this class was important to her. She said, because I want to become a U.S. citizen and learn how to speak English. I thought this was a really big answer because she wants to dedicate herself to America, so she or anyone could be able to get their green card to become U.S. citizens and learn to speak English. Another thing I like to point out is my ex-friend from high school was Mexican, and she spoke very little English, so when anyone asked her questions, she only stood like a little of it. So she thought it was important for her to be a part of a program that would help guide her to speak like better English. And that's why English should be considered an important factor for immigrants and refugees. I know that, sorry for my paper. Okay, I know some of you is thinking, why should I care about this? Well, English may not be the spoken language of the world, but it is the official language in a large number of countries. It is estimated that the number of people in the world that use English to communicate on a regular basis is 2 billion. Hold on. So that's why English is a better communication, because it will help, like when you try to like apply for like jobs or anything, like you'll understand what in America, that's like you understand what people like are asking you and what they're telling you, and like if they're like and you want to say if you want to learn about like the world, like top films, books, and movies and music that are in English, learning English will help you like better understand the cultural understanding of English books. But overall, it could be less difficult to understand, and it could make a difference, and it's like a great opportunity to learn. The citizenship class that was formed for students and adults who are willing to learn and to learn English and better themselves. The ways that me or you can help them is to have patience, because they're not going to learn it in a day. So it's best to sit and work with them, and also to talk to them by sitting and communicating with them to help them learn a lot more of it.
Good job. You did it. Good job. All right, I know we're way past time. I'm sure that our final speakers really appreciated you guys hanging out. Thank you for that, and congratulations to all of you. I know it's not easy to come up here. I know it's very nerve-wracking to stand in front of even a familiar audience and speak publicly about things that you care about. So thank you. I will not hold you any longer, so go enjoy the rest of your day, and we'll talk more soon. Thank you, everybody. Good evening. The first order of business tonight is that we offer our public narrative presentations. So thank you all for being here. And as you know, this is sort of the culmination of a lot of hard work, a lot of research, both traditional research and fieldwork research. You've worked closely with nonprofit agencies in our community, right, to come closer to some of the issues that you've been researching, right, to work side by side with experts in the field. And as a result, you now are more expert than you were when you started. And hopefully you've raised a level of awareness, perhaps that you didn't have before, a level of critical consciousness, such that we can call one another to action here today around some of these issues. So I know we don't have much of an outside audience here, but to remind you again, we do have an audience beyond our room and beyond this moment in time, because it's being recorded and will be made available on the library's YouTube channel, which does get some traffic, as well as it will be archived and searchable through the library's database. So you never know who you may be inspiring down the road. So without further ado, we will hear your public narratives, where you will weave together, of course, a story of yourself, a story of us, and most significantly, the story of right now. So shall we just take this order here?
Hi, my name is Daniela, and I'm going to talk about homelessness in USA. When I was 22 years old, I moved to United States, and at the beginning I lived in the North Chicago area. Whenever I had to go home, I had to pass under one bridge, Lawrence and Lakeshore Drive, where was about dozens of homeless people lived there under the tent. And I was very shocked and surprised. How is so many homeless people in USA? How is possible that one of the richest countries in the world have that many homeless people? And I have to admit, at that time, I didn't read English very well, and I didn't understand. So I tried to look the other way, easier way. So I thought, maybe they're pretty much mentally sick, and that's what they choose to do. Maybe they're using substance abusers, or I'm even embarrassed to admit this, but I thought maybe they're just lazy. They don't want to look for a job. As I said, I'm embarrassed that I thought that way. Over time, I learned English, and I got more interested, more educated about what is going on. Why is this such a big issue? And it is complex issue. So I read some books. I got involved in healthcare business, so I learned a lot about mental illness people. And over the time, I learned causes, and I got more aware and more empathic, how to say. And to understand also that some things in life, maybe that comes with aging, but some things in life happens we cannot control, as mental illness or physical illness or domestic abuse. So one of the biggest causes of the homelessness in USA is, of course, poverty, connected with the expenses of the housing in this country, but also mental illness, domestic abuse, substance abuse, And we all need to do something about it. We should care, and it's common sense that we care. Of course, when we see homeless person, we all get affected. I mean, but why should we really care? Why? Some people have different reasons. For me, for example, it's about the safety also. Safety, mentally sick people, they need help, not just the housing. They need support. They need help, because mental illness doesn't affect only one person. It affects all family. It's a road to the poverty because of the medical bills that piling, and they need help. They need help with the treatment, with the care. So another reason, for example, domestic violence. 26% in this country, women are housewives for different reasons. Doesn't mean that they don't want to work. They all have different reasons. But can you imagine? You all have mothers. Some of you have sisters, and any woman can relate to that. To just imagine to go in a house where they're gonna be beat up, maybe killed, or to put their kids in jeopardy, or to go in a shelter. So we should care. We should all do something about it. We should all, because we can make changes. You never know what change, some donation or anything can change, how much it can change someone's life. Also, if you care about where your money goes and you all work so hard for where your tax money goes. One homeless person costs about $40,000 a year. 40,000, one chronic homeless person in America. Because it's hard to just believe in that, but emergency calls, hospitality, treatments, therapy, then back to the street, then cycle goes on and on. And you hear, we need to, not just a safe person falling from the bridge, we need to fix that bridge. We need to do something about it. So what can we do? I know many of you are thinking, what can we do? I don't know how to write to Senate, or one person cannot make such a big difference. But we all can do something. You're students, we are students. Why should we say they should do something about it? Who are they? We are students, we are smart enough to do something, some change, one at a time. So I'm gonna ask you three things to do. If you do one of those things, it would be great, but it would be perfect about 3. Take few garbage bags, go in your closet. Your family, it's actually springtime, so your family is gonna be grateful for that. Go and look for the clothes, shoes, especially jackets and shoes. That's what homeless people need the most. And think about it, they don't have a place where to wash their clothes, so they need that clothes over and over. Pick anything you don't need, you haven't worn for a couple of years. You're never gonna wear it again. Go to your brothers and sisters' closets, to your mom's. Google, research where you can drop it off. It feels good. Go to the shelter, drop it off. It feels good. Because think about it, what goes around comes around. It feels good. And you did something. You're gonna feel good about it. I did something good today. The other thing, it might be small, but it means when you go to the grocery store, pick up the granola bars, pound box, put it in your cart. When you see person asking with a sign by the street, asking for money, give them at least some granola bars. It's a big chance that they're hungry. They need, maybe their family is hungry. And it makes difference. You don't know how small gesture, talking to homeless people in the shelter, small gesture and be treated as a person, that means a lot to them. Third thing that I'm asking from you, vote. You gotta believe that you can make differences. Where that money goes, that as your candidates, what they believing in. because we need help. Those people, they need help. It's for many reasons. One of the safety reasons. Mentally, they need help. And you see, every week there is some shooting. And most of the time, those are mentally sick people that they need housing, they need the care, they need the treatment. So I'm gonna, this is pretty much my presentation, but also I'm gonna ask you, whenever you get a chance to volunteer or be in contact with a homeless person, treat them as a humans. And I'm gonna end with a quote. I forgot her name, I forgot how she looked, but I never forgot how she made me feel. Because that they need to that feeling that they're human and that somebody cares. Thank you.
My dad's grandparents immigrated to the United States from Greece. They spoke maybe a handful of English words, but mostly just spoke Greek. When they first got here, they received a lot of dirty looks and racist comments. They also got none of the same opportunities. My dad's grandfather applied to over 25 jobs before he finally landed one almost half a year later. It also took them more than a week to even find a solid place to live because they suffered so much discrimination from real estate agents and landlords. Because of this, I have never been racist or left anyone out just because they looked different, had different traditions, or spoke a different language as me. I had a similar experience as my dad's grandfather, not being able to relate or communicate with people I saw every day. Back when I was a junior in high school, I had a job at a small pub. It was called Jameson's Pub, and I was a busboy. I made pretty bad pay, and most of my job consists of cleaning up people's messes, plates, and glasses. Another thing I did for most of my time spent there was work in the kitchen. I was either cooking or cleaning around the kitchen in the back, and when I was back there, I spent all my time with 3 or 4 Mexican men. They all spoke Spanish and only knew a few English words. While I worked with them, I felt very out of place. I was an outsider. I had no idea what they were saying, and that led to not only struggles with the work process, but also made me feel left out when they would be talking and laughing about things I couldn't understand. Because of this, I kept to myself and did not like going to work. This experience led me to choose a service learning activity that I did, which was helping Mr. Morsch teach immigrants to speak English. This class was a great experience, and I would recommend it to everyone here. It is amazing to see that something so simple as the language you speak can drastically change people's lives. When I first got there, the teacher had me sit in front of the class and let them ask me any questions they wanted. After a few minutes of answering relatively simple get-to-know-you questions, I was sent back to my seat. The class was a tight-knit group, and most of them came to every single class every single week. The class started when the teacher described the weather outside and trailed off onto other conversations. The class ended by the teacher splitting up the class into 3 groups and having them write all the differences from their home country versus America. I helped 2 of the groups in the back while Mr. Morsch helped the one in the front. It felt great to teach these students something that most people take for granted or don't even think about. I heard a lot of stories and struggles from these students that they go through every day. Most of them said that the language barriers they face every day is the biggest struggle. It's very difficult to have fun or even have a conversation with people in a country of which you don't know the most common language. I realized that all these students opened up and participated in this class so much because it is the one place that they can learn, be themselves, and finally have a conversation aside from the ones they have at home. It was nice to see all the eager faces ready to learn and knowing that I helped them progress in this country. Most immigrants suffer from racism and struggles in school, everyday life, from the language barriers that stands in their way from interacting with people. Some examples of racism we saw all together was in the movie Crash. Such examples include the scene where Sandra Bullock was telling her husband They need to replace the locks on their doors again because the man who put them on was a Mexican. She made prejudiced, racist comments that he would sell their spare keys to his gangbanger homies so they could rob them. The question is, what can you do? Now, I know most of you, probably none of you, will go to the English class that I went to, but I encourage you to. It was a great experience, but even if you don't, there are a few other things that you could do to help. You don't even need to go out of your way to help. What you can do is just be nice. It's simple. The next time you notice or interact with a foreigner who doesn't speak the same language as you, be understanding and be patient. Give them a smile and maybe even help them learn the language if you have the time. The choice is yours. It is easy to be ignorant or racist to people who aren't the same as you, but it takes a real good-hearted person to see past the differences and help someone out, or even just give a welcoming smile, because I'm sure you would want the same if you were in their shoes.
All right. My name is Ray Marini. I'm going to be talking to you guys about child poverty. First, I'm going to tell you guys a little bit about myself. When I was growing up, I had both my parents till I was about 5 years old, and around that time, they got divorced, and my mom and I ended up moving in with my grandparents who both had cancer. After the divorce, I was immediately affected. I ended up acting out and being a big troublemaker in school and at home. My mom ended up getting a job being freelance marketing, basically doing that on a 100% commission, and was still able to provide for us. And because of that, it was really amazing that she was able to provide for us, because doing freelance marketing is like basically means that if you're not doing the job, you're not getting paid. Let's see. The divorce affected me. Oh, sorry. However, this did not save me from being bullied at school for looking poor because of the clothes I was wearing. Other kids have it worse, though. They go to school on an empty stomach, don't get enough sleep, and they also might not have hot water for a shower. And starting off their day on the wrong foot puts them at a daily disadvantage. In the United States, there are currently 15 million children living below the poverty line. There are many other trends that affect the development of children living in poverty, such as parental substance abuse, trauma, exposure to crime, maternal depression, and divorce. All these factors only set the child back further from their peers. Studies even show that a teenager who was living in poverty as a child grows up to have a lot of behavior problems. This only sets the child back further from their peers when it comes to education. And then on top of that, an even worse thing is that children who are born into poverty end up coming in at a low birth weight and also have a higher chance of contracting respiratory disease. When a child is living below the poverty line, their mental health is at risk, which is in turn making them living in that environment a risk. So many families end up actually losing their kids because it's not a safe environment for the kid to be in. You might be thinking, well, how does this affect me? Well, this directly affects everyone because people living in poverty are more likely to steal, need government assistance, as well as affect the funding of schools. Places like the Carol Robertson Center for Learning are specifically made to help these struggling families. Between 90 and 95% of their student body is living below the poverty line. They help out their students' families by providing many things for free, such as formula, diapers, meals, as well as free field trips. The Carol Robertson Center for Learning is always open to taking in volunteers, but not everyone can donate their time as much as other people can, so I found a solution. If anyone wants to pull out their phone and go to their respective app store and download this app called Compassion, they can directly sponsor a child for about $38 a month. And you can send birthday gifts, graduation gifts, or when they graduate like any school or whatever. And you could also send money to donate to the event, to the organization to help set up an event for the kid in that area. If that is not your kind of thing, though, if it's like too expensive, you could also go to your local Walgreens and purchase any of their Red Nose products. I actually have one on me right now. any of their products for Red Nose, they end up going to 50% of it goes to help fight child poverty in the United States, and the other half goes to fight child poverty across the world. So if you can see that there's a direct correlation between how the local community affects a child living in poverty, as well as they have an effect on it. There's also a direct correlation between the state through school funding, as well as the nation through government assistance. And it's about time that we start investing in our future, because every child that's living in our nation and through the world is directly involved in our future. Thank you.
As you may or may not know, my name is Emily, and today I want to discuss the issue at hand, which is extreme global poverty that affects about 767 million people in this world. But before I get into that, I wanted to say this. Ever since I was a kid, we always had money. Our parents were always working. We never had to worry about anything. Until one day my mom quit her job. She was sick of being treated how she was at her job. And my mom told us not to worry because we would be fine. Our dad was still working. And I still worried because that's just how I was as a kid. But then a couple days later, about a week later, my dad lost his job. And it caused me to worry a lot more than it should have. My mom kept telling us, oh, we still have money, we're fine. And that was right before Christmas. So I didn't know what was going to happen. But we still had a nice Christmas. And then I found out my parents racked up a lot of debt just so that we can have that Christmas that we usually have. And that's what put me into the idea of why it's important to help people. Because when we're in that situation, nobody cares because nobody knows us. But I started helping out a lot more. When I came to 8th grade, I was in National Junior Honor Society, and I was also making my confirmation, so I had to do service hours. But my service hours led more into helping people. I collected toys so that kids could have toys for Christmas, for Toys for Tots. I collected things so that animals can be taken care of at paws. But one story that hit me the most was Mona Purdy's story. She was an average woman, mom, with her daughter in Girl Scouts. One day she decided to go doing a running marathon in Guatemala. There she was shocked to see something, and that something was women, men, and children did not have shoes on. None of them. They were running around without shoes. So she decided to go back home and have her daughter's Girl Scout troop do a project where they collect shoes and they can bring them back over. I think that's amazing because what happened was when it was over and she brought them back, she thought it was over. But they kept bringing shoes back to her, and she thought that this occupation basically chose her. And she started the organization known as Share Your Souls. And I think that's amazing because she has raised about 13 million shoes in 19 years just to help people have shoes. And for granted, I take my shoes for granted. I don't think about them. I complain about them. All the shoelaces are untied, or I tripped over my shoe, or new shoes are uncomfortable. And, well, walking in them for a long time or having a long day at work, your feet probably hurt. And when you take them off, it feels great. But what if that was different? What if you were in Africa or Guatemala and it was rocky and sandy and you had to walk around just to get places? But instead, you didn't have shoes on, no socks, nothing, walking on your bare feet. Every step you take could cause a gash in your feet, can cause you to have diseases that could kill you. And your solution might be, oh, no, just stand there, don't go anywhere. But you're thirsty. You need water so you don't die from dehydration, and your family needs to, so they don't die from dehydration. When it comes down to it, you have to walk a long time. Try 13 miles just to get semi-clean water. And whether or not you know this, there's mother and children that do this every single day, sometimes even more than once, so that they can just have clean, semi-clean water for their families and their friends so they can survive. And that is crazy to me. And that's what extreme global poverty, the definition is to me. People that do not have the necessities that we have to stay and take for granted for. I mean, I could take 10 steps and go get a drink of water down the hallway while they walk 13 miles just to get semi-clean water. Now, the actual definition is much more than that. Not just having those necessities filled, but also living under $2 every single day. There's statistics that say $1, that say $1.25, that say $1.30, and even $1.90. So basically under $2 a day, which is crazy to think about because there's not many things you can buy that's $2. Things are expensive. And that makes me wonder how people actually survive on that, and it's crazy to think about. And there was a statistic out there that stated that the 8 men have just the amount of money as 3.6 billion people in the poorest half of our world. 8 men to 3.6 billion people. That is crazy to me, and I don't know why that's true. And so, what can we do? When it comes down to it, this is a political issue. It's really a hard thing because our government is focusing on mental health issues, war, and other things like that. So, when it comes down to it, the number one thing you can do is vote in people that are willing to handle this issue. You can you can mail into them and tell them that this issue should be taken at hand. Because this issue can be solved by 2030 if we put it right now instead of putting it later. If we put it right now, it could be the end of it forever. And another thing you can do is there's these things that are like mission trips. You can help build schools for kids that need to learn. You can help build churches and houses and all these other projects. There's thousands of people that help with that type of stuff. Because if you start building schools, those children can then get schooled, and those children can then help raise this extreme global poverty out of what it was. Another statistic stated that if children just had basic reading skills, about 100 million people would be then raised out of extreme global poverty. So, and you don't know, if there's kids over there that had schooling that we did, they could be the next biggest engineer. They could be the person that could get rid of all these diseases that we have in this world. You don't know. So I'm not telling you, and I cannot make you do these things. I cannot make you make the change. But it's up to you, because in America, it is affecting us too. 1 in 25 families with children are affected by this. So do you want it to get more, or do you want to get less? It's up to you. I can't force you.
Good. A small but mighty group. Very good. Well, fantastic job, everybody. I know you were very nervous. We've got a very small group, but you were nervous anyway. It doesn't matter how many people in the room. The nerves don't go away. But you did an excellent job. So I want to commend you for your courage and for all your hard work that led to this moment where you could stand here and talk about things that you've hopefully have found to be important and to inspire others in doing so. So thank you for that. Give yourselves a hand.